Welcome to our University of University Port Talk series. Today, our guest is our colleague, Marie Kraft from Sweden. And to present her, well, I don't need to present her because you know her, she is our colleague and teacher, but I wanted to share with you what I asked her. When I studied architecture in Spain, we were taught to become architects. And that means, in that time, to design and build buildings. Then I went to the UK, to the Bartlett to do my PhD, and I was surprised that the one who was the director of the Architectural Association, Alvin Boyarsky, he recognized that perhaps only 10% of his students design and build buildings. Something that for me, coming from my Spanish School of Architecture, it was a shock, because what he said, that the great success of his school is that had opened the windows and the limits of the discipline. Many of his students design even of course, furniture or fashion design, or even the backgrounds of video games. So from that point of view, I want to introduce a Marie Kraft lecture confessing that what she's doing now is my dream work as an architect. So, cheers, Marie.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Yes, it's a dream work. And I think I've been searching for this since my time in an architecture school in France. I'm Swedish, but I've studied in Paris. And also, I must say that even in France in these years, it was a lot about being an architect in building houses, and but very big houses and very big projects. A lot of square meters. It was many thousands of square meters in every project. And I think that was perhaps something that for me was problematic. And and when in the end of my studies, I started to look around for something perhaps to find another scale of intervention. And I started by, I think, going out of the discipline or the field of architecture, you could call it like that, towards art. And I continued to study theater, performing arts, but also, yes, public art, different kinds of interventions, a lot in the public space. And I also started to work with the Cultural Institute in Paris, the Swedish Cultural Institute, a lot with scenographies and putting up exhibitions and etc., and working together with artists. And I think I started to feel that it's something when you could say that it's two things perhaps. It's when you go out of your discipline and you talk with people who are perhaps, even if we are into this, we call us interdisciplinary as architects. I think we have our field, we have our own discourse and our terminology and way of speaking and so on. And then I felt like it was very interesting to be between these artists that don't have that common language. They are all very aware often of their own personal perspective on the world. And I think that was a good lesson and triggering something in me. And I think it was also about the fact that when you in art, perhaps I felt that you have less responsibility in one way. And I think what is characterize architecture and planning is an urban design is that we are projecting the future. So we should take some responsibility for something that will become. And perhaps as an artist, you work more in the present and often can work directly in the present, and you are making the present in the present. And I think that was something that I was searching for. So after a while, I tried to find ways of putting this my interest for the city and the urban and the built space together with this experience of working with perhaps visual arts and installations and performing arts. I was in France, and I should say that in France, and if you listened last week, what Hossein talked about and the experience of Rue de Frigo was something that happened in this time as well. So I think many architects started to collaborate with artists, and art in France has a very big, it has a big, yes, it's very present in the society. So it's rather, yes, it's easy also get, to find money to work together in a cultural and artistic field, which could be much more difficult perhaps in Sweden. Or in Italy, where I am now. So we see if I manage to move these, that would be another thing. Yeah. So I think what I just wrote down here is a little bit what I was started to search for in this kind of urban research, where I more and more became like focused on these artists in residence. And I think I searched for the collaboration and dialogue in the process of architecture and urban planning. I wanted perhaps myself as a person, but also in the process of design and projecting something, I had the feeling I needed this displacement. And that's also something Hossein talked about, how they worked in this way of displace your vision and decentering your vision as an architect. And how you also can do that together with other people. So you can, like inhabitants and politicians, how you change the vision on the space, and that art can be an artistic processes can really help to do that. And I think I really was interested in this transdisciplinarity in the arts, when you work together, perhaps not only one artistic discipline, but and theater and street performance was a very interesting space for that. And there was something for me, perhaps as foreigner in France at that time, and later in Italy. It was also something about I had the feeling that you find out so many things when you are this foreigner coming to a place and as a stranger. And when you start to meet the local, it's something happens. Something happens for the locals, but also for the stranger. So I think I started to think about how can you inhabit space in that way, that you are still a kind of stranger, but you are present in the territory, simultaneously almost. And what I did, I was always working in very collective experiences, but I was never part of one collective. So I've been moving around in different collectives, and I also put up some kind of own, I launched some experiences, never alone, but and they were like how to be artist in residence in different contexts, and always in some kind of urban context. One of them was in Reims, where I gather a group of artists from different countries, from Sweden, France, Italy, mostly. And we entered in this a kind of industrial building in the middle of an area which was under big rehabilitation in the 2010 until 2015 or something. And we stayed in this area. So we entered an apartment which should be renovated, and just try to stay there. And it seemed so simple, and for me it was great. I thought it was just a crazy, super good idea, and very easy to do, just to go there and live there for a while. It was not so easy, of course, and it's not so easy always to change your, to enter these areas, and you don't know people, and a lot of practical things that become so important when you enter a new city, and especially if you're a foreigner. I was speaking French, but my friends were from abroad. But it was an amazing experience, and I think what I learned here was really that it's really interesting how you can develop like this kind of collective work very quickly, because we stayed for 3 weeks and we came back for other moment for 3 weeks or something. So you don't have to stay so long, and that is perhaps also good, and that you can also enter in contact with so many different people because you don't really know the rules. So there was something very interesting in the way these artists and we as a collective became a kind of mediator in an urban process, because we entered in contact with the politicians, but also with the inhabitants and associations and artists, and it was very easy as a small group of foreigners to open up new doors. And I must say, what was difficult here was that we came back. It was very like successful in the beginning, but when we started to come back more and more often, it became more complicated, because we also entered in the local context and in the local rules, and it became much heavier, you could say. So this was after this, I made a kind of similar experience in Sweden, in a small town by the sea, rather wealthy town today. It was an old fisherman's village, poor people in the 19th century, but today it's very wealthy, and almost a suburb of Gothenburg. And they have a big renovation project in the harbor, and a urban development project. And I also came there several times with artists from like strangers, sometimes Swedish, but not from this town, and also some foreigners, students, and some architects from Italy. And it was a lot about trying to create a dialogue, and I think it worked in some ways, but as we went there several times, like 3-4 weeks. We could use a space in the same way we did in France. So we had this kind of anchorage in the town. But of course, the problem here is also that this urban planning process, we entered in a very early stage of the process to try to create some kind of discussion and understand what this town and its inhabitants needed and wanted with this new area, for example. But in the end, it was, we were so early, and the planning process is so long. So in this case, I think we were almost like too short and too early in the beginning. So it was very interesting, but in fact, the process it was so much in the beginning. So I don't know how much in this end, like now, 5 years later, is remaining of very many good ideas and connections. So these were my first experience. I also worked and for short periods in several institutional residencies, like for artists and writers and also for researchers and architects in mostly in France and Sweden and in Italy. And in 2000, 15, I came to Rome as an artist in residence myself, as an architect in residence at the Swedish Institute. And I think that was a kind of revelation, because here you arrive on the territory, which is thousands of years, like so many traces, and with this enormous network of different institute and residences. So the first one was created in the 17th century by the French, and you have more than 30 different kind of academies, different kind of foreign organizations where artists from you could say the whole world almost today, come and stay for a while and sometimes come back, and they are really like as a collective or as a group, they are really present in the city, and they have, I mean, been part of this development and transformation of Rome since since its beginning almost. So that was for me extremely exciting. And here I met, and this is another connection with Hossein. It's a talk last week. Here I met this group of the collective, like a collective subject, like they call them, Stalker, which is a group, and they also started to explore and try to understand how to be architects in the mid 1990s, late, around 2000. So for me, that was perhaps the reason also I wanted to stay, and I started to explore together with them, and there are always like this foreign context. So then when I had the possibility, I applied for this work as a director for the Circolo Scandinavo, which is a Nordic association in Rome, and it's rather small. Many of these foreign academies are enormous. I mean, the French it's Renaissance Palace, one of the most beautiful and biggest in Rome, and also the Spanish is amazing. I mean, they have the church by yes, now I don't remember. Yes, in these monuments, like really beautiful surroundings with big gardens and terraces and so on. And this small Circolo Scandinavo is old. It was created in 1860, and it was kind of gathering of Nordic artists and others, researchers and other, I mean, architects and archaeologists who met in Rome from the Nordic countries, the Nordic region. And at that time, the Nordic region was like two countries, you could say. It was Denmark and Norway, Sweden as a union. And then Finland was part of Russia, but then became Finland later. And then Iceland was part of Denmark. So, I mean, and today we have like 5 countries and even more with the Faroe Islands and the Åland Islands, for example, and Greenland. So today it's a gathering place and a residence for artists from all these countries and regions in the north of Europe. And they come for a month, 2 or 3, to work with what they want in Rome. And I think for me it's extremely exciting. I started last autumn, and to try to see how this place, was just renting an apartment in Rome, and has been moving 10 times in 160 years. But how this kind of continuity of people being here, but coming and going in some way, how that can like be developed even more, and what you can understand from a place, and also how you can understand from meeting in this condition. So now we have, like, it's a lot about walking in Rome. It was always about walking, but now with the COVID, of course, it's even more. So we work together with this group Stalker a lot. So we have several projects for the next 3 years. And some of them are really about walking. It's a lot about the wild nature in the city, because Rome is really, that's one characteristic, and it hasn't been so perhaps attractive, if you could say so, the last decades. But now I think it's great, because we need that. We are in many other cities, we need to recreate the wilderness. And in Rome, as it has been abandoned and all these ruins, they have this very strong presence of wild nature. And from the antiquity, it has been part of the city. So I think that is something that we will work on, and something that you can find that artists and architects who came to Rome, they always were like very amazed, and you can see traces of this in writings and pictures and so on. So we work a lot like with this small group of people here, but also connecting with the other academies and with the universities, and also a lot with other foreigners, like migrants coming to Rome. Many people live here without being really like registered, moving around, moving through the city. And I think for an architect, it's so interesting to be in this condition where you are like in the being in the place, inhabiting, but also a kind of a little bit not totally inside. And I think that is what artists also can show us sometimes, this kind of displacement in that sense with of our vision or perspective, that we change. We are a little bit scattered, or I don't know how to say that, but like to change our vision, I think it's extremely important, and also for in this kind of gathering of artists from different artistic disciplines that don't know each other. It's a very dynamic condition, and it's about to being here, and we need a space for that. So of course, it's also about the space, how we use the space. It's a lot about that, and I think that's what I now like in the fact that I will stay here for some years, is that I can like, I think as an architect, it is interesting to work with the physical space. Always, even if we don't build new buildings, I think normally or for me at least, that's my part perhaps, that I can't leave. I'm very interested how we use the space. So it's a lot about gathering people, but in different spaces. Also use the city, of course. It's a lot about conviviality. Here we have some Icelandic friends of our Icelandic friends, I think, more or less. Some Icelandic architects present, and I think, I just wanted to, when Javier asked me this, I wanted me to talk about this, I thought like, why? Yeah, but this is not perhaps a good. I have so much to say about other projects. But in fact, I think it's extremely interesting to inhabit and to be local, in that sense that you are like trying to inhabit a city or a space and try to understand it, but you're still a foreigner. And the fact that you are a small group that is always a little bit in between, it helps a lot to understand many things that are so difficult to understand if we always stay in the same place, or if we are only tourists. I mean, it's very nice to go and visit and see things, but it's also very interesting to try to find these situations where we can stay for a longer time and in a little, another context. So if you want to come to Rome, there is a lot of space in Rome, and it's very interesting today. So perhaps we can have digital meetings from Rome, but also, you can stay here, and there are a lot of space where to live and to stay for a while. So that would be nice. But what is very important in Rome as well is food. So that is part of the project, of course. Like it's paid, no? I don't know. So just have a nice meal, and skål.
Skål.
And artists are amazing cooks, chefs, perhaps architects as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for the delay.
Thank you so much, Marie, because definitely you have done a presentation of a job as a director, but I believe that from a director who is an architect, I mean, in the way you have transmitted, you present your work, definitely you have, is a design, like a building, those spaces, those, I mean, definitely is a new window as well for horizon for architects. You are a great example.
And there are many cases before me, I think, internationally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We finish here, but announcing next Thursday night, we have an incredible as well, another window for profession of the architect. The lecture is by Jerzy Latka, our colleague from Poland, and he will talk about learning by doing. So see you then. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.